Everything happens for a reason. Raise you vibration. You manifested this. Trust the universe. Sounds familiar? These four phrases fill the modern spiritual space so completely that you have probably said them yourself or heard them say it back to you at a moment when you needed something with more substance than these phrases actually carry. Almost none of them mean anything. Not because spirituality does not matter, because these specific phrases have quietly replaced actual spiritual understanding with something much more shallower, vague words that sounds wise, that feel comforting for a moment and prevent the real discernment. Today, 10 of these lines for you, what they usually mean when people say them, what the Kemetic, the Vedic, and the Kabbalistic tradition actually teach instead, and why the difference matters far more than most people realize. These phrases are not evil. Most of the people who say them are sincere. They are attempting real kindness, trying to help, trying to comfort, to explain, trying to give a language to something they feel but cannot yet name precisely. But the serious ancient traditions were built specifically to prevent this kind of imprecision. The whole discipline is teaching you to see the difference between vague words that point at nothing and precise words that point at something real. When you compare what these popular phrases actually claim, what they mean against what the actual traditions say, something becomes visible that is worth being talked about. You have to think about this. Most of the phrases modern culture treats as wisdom are shortcuts around wisdom. So they don't really help. Everything happens for a reason. Usually say to comfort someone in pain. Sometimes say to justify one's own difficulty as meaningful. The problem is that the claim makes every event equal in significance. A traffic jam and the death of a child are both for a reason. The phrase is so broad, it says nothing at all. And therefore it cannot help at all. The traditions are far more precise. Some events are the working of karma, the specific momentum of what you have been in motion with, finally meeting the conditions where it becomes visible. Some are your tikkun assignment, a piece of soul work you agreed to before you came into this body. Some are collective, inherited from your family, from your culture, your era, and some are simply the raw disorder the Egyptians called Isfet. Not everything is ordered. Reason is not universal. Meaning is specific. The traditions trains you to see which is which. You manifested this. You attracted this. Another one. Modern law of attraction culture in most damaging form. Sometimes said to comfort, sometimes said as blame dressed up as spiritual insight. The problem is that it places all responsibility for hardship on the individual. It erases collective karma. It erases generational trauma. It erases the reality that some suffering is imposed on by systems, by people, and circumstances you did not create. The Vedic tradition never thought this, for example. Karma is the arrival of what has been in motion, they say. Some of it is yours, most of it not. The Kabbalistic tradition explicitly names the klipot, the unordered and therefore free energy, as external forces that shape human experience. You are not the sole author of everything that happens to you. You have to acknowledge that. And here's another one. You manifested this is not just wrong, it is cruel to people carrying inherited or collective difficulty. And it is one of the more spiritually damaging phrases the modern wellness industry has produced. Raise your vibration. Another one usually implies you should feel better, be more positive, elevate yourself somehow. The problem is that vibration, in the way the phrases uses it, is not a measurable quantity. No serious tradition teaches this as a practice. It is a modern metaphor. The traditions describe consciousness, elevation with real precision. Vedic teaching maps it through the koshas and the specific alignment of Ida and Pingala. Kabbalistic teaching maps it through the balance of the Sephirot. Kemetic teaching maps it through alignment with Mat. None of these traditions ask you to raise your vibration. They ask you to do specific technical, patient, spiritual work. Raise your vibration is a slogan. The actual work is precise. Trust the universe usually means stop worrying, everything will work out. The problem is that it treats the universe as a personal assistant. It removes the practitioner's responsibility to actually navigate. You're not the captain anymore. It replaces discernment with passivity, dressed as fate. The traditions do not teach this. Your work is to align with the ordering principles, Mat, Dharma, Tikkun, and to act with discernment. Trust is placed in the accuracy of your own reading, not in a benevolent cosmic customer service that arranges outcomes on your behalf. You are the participant. The universe is not managing your life for you. Everything is love. Usually say to dissolve tension or reframe a difficulty as ultimately loving. The problem is that it flattens our distinction. Cruelty is not love. Betrayal is not love. Manipulation is not love. It's darkness. Collapsing the difference does not spiritualize the situation. It obscures it. The Kabbalistic understanding is deeply precise here. Love, chesed, without boundary, gebura, is dissolution. The divine expression is not on quality, but the harmony of the 10 forces, each balanced by its counterweight. Chesed, without gebura, is not more loving, it is unstable. Reducing all of this to everything is love is not deeper spirituality. It is shallower spirituality, pretending to be deep. You are enlightened. The modern non-dual bypass, you do not need to do anything. You are already whole. It comforts the ego by removing the need for actual development, and it disarms people from the very practice that would genuinely free them and give them order. The traditions are honest about this. Yes, the observer, the Atman, the divine spark, the seed of awareness is already present in you. This is real, but recognizing it consistently, seating yourself in it as your default state is the entire discipline of the tradition. It takes serious work, sometimes lifetimes. Telling people they are already enlightened is not liberating. It is closing the door to what actually liberates them, what could happen for them, who they could be. You so choose this or chose this. Often say to reframe hardship as sacred agreement. It makes every trauma the responsibility of the soul. Applied broadly, this reasoning ends up calming that abused children chose their abuse, that genocide victims signed a soul contract, that hereditary illness was a pre-incarnate decision. This is not spiritual wisdom. It is a toxic distortion of a real idea. The actual teaching in the Kabbalistic tradition distinguishes carefully. Some difficulty is your tikkun. Some is generational. Some is others people's tikkun. And you are collateral. Some is simply the shape of embodied life. The tradition never claims every hardship is soul chosen. That is the modern misuse. There are no accidents. Another phrase, similar to the first phrase, but more, well, absolute. The problem is that it makes randomness impossible. It denies the reality that some events genuinely are the raw disorder of physical existence. Accidents of biology, encounters between unrelated systems, the ordinary chaos of a world that is not fully ordered. The Kemetic tradition included Isfet, chaos, a real force. Not everything carries structured meaning. The wisdom is in knowing when to look for meaning and when to accept that a thing was simply what happened. And the question is not why, but what now. Denying accidents does not make you more spiritual. It also does not help you. It makes you unable to read reality clearly. And this brings us to good vibes only. Usually appears as decoration, but it reveals a real avoidance of difficulty as a lifestyle. The problem is that it treats difficult emotions as pollution to be filtered out. This is the opposite of what any serious tradition teaches. Darkness, difficulty, shadow, grief, appropriate anger. The traditions treat all of these as necessary energies and states to transform for the actual work, to become who you are. The Vedic Ida current is the receptive dark polarity, equal in the dignity to Pingala, the light. Kabbalistic Gebura is sacred, necessary, part of the divine structure of the Sephirot. Kemetic Mat includes the recognition of Isvet. Filtering out difficulty does not make you spiritual. It makes you shallow. And eventually it makes you dishonest with yourself. And the worst, in the end, you stay in fear. Because every kind of darkness you are not clearly addressing, you can also not separate from. Send them love and light. Sometimes a real spiritual response, often a way to avoid actual engagement with a person, a conflict, or a truth. The problem is not the phrase itself. The problem is when it substitutes for accountability, direct honesty, or appropriate action. A child or an animal that gets abused and you are aware does not need your light from home. It needs your love and light in action, stepping in. The traditions teach that the real work often requires direct engagement. Sometimes the correct response is love and light. Sometimes it is the honest no, the clean challenge, the appropriate boundary that a situation requires. Choosing love and light every time is not spirituality. It is conflict avoidance dressed in spiritual costume. The discipline is in knowing which response the moment actually needs, requires. These phrases are not the enemy. Most people who say them are sincere, they believe them. Many are attempting real kindness. What is worth noticing is that these phrases have quietly replaced the actual precision of the traditions and the actual training of discernment that used to be the whole point. And what is most disturbing for me, some sentences teach people who actually want to change and be changers to hide out passive. The traditions are precise. Modern spirituality has become the opposite, a shallow vehicle without power and force. If you notice yourself reaching for one of these phrases, that is not shame, that is a signal and an opportunity to ask what you were actually trying to say and whether there is a more accurate word underneath it. There almost always is. And if you're using this phrase for a long time, take a moment and think about what they actually changed within you. Did they help you to become a more universal aligned human? Or are they just placeholders for something you don't know how to actually fill? The traditions have these more accurate words, and they are waiting. My name is Nicky Sabeti. Everything happens for a reason. So if you found this video and you like this content, please like and subscribe and help this channel grow. I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.